Now, Essence is one of the leading media companies dedicated to celebrating women of color. Year after year, they salute women and inspire the next generation.
That's right, and here to talk about their newest gift to the world, Essence, Black Women in Hollywood, a collector's edition.
Collectors!
Oh, it's amazing. It's Editorial Projects Director Patrik Henry Bass. Welcome back to the show.
It's always good to see you, Shannon.
Yes.
And nice to meet you as well.
Thank you, Patrick. Very nice to make your acquaintance. Now, my first question is, why was I not included in this publication?
Well, were you nominated for an Oscar?
No, I was not.
That's the only reason you're not in the book.
The only reason.
The only reason. That's it. Only reason.
So tell me more about the women that have been put in this amazing edition of Essence, Black Women in Hollywood.
So this book was a companion to the March issue that we did about Black Women in Hollywood, which is our annual event, which I'm sure you guys were at, that celebrated some wonderful women in Hollywood. And so we were looking at Oscar winners, past Oscar winners, African-American women, and we were looking for reference books, and we couldn't find any. And so, like so many things in our community, we had to create it ourselves. So what we did was to put together a compendium of every African-American actress, not songwriter, like Irene Cara won an Oscar for songwriting. Mary J. Blige was nominated for songwriting, but this was strictly acting, and we turned up some wonderful gems, jewels, and surprises that are all in this book.
Well, I love how you take us sort of like down memory lane and give us a history lesson, even taking it all the way back to 1940 when Hattie McDaniel won for Best Supporting Actress. Tell us a little bit more about her and her story.
Right. Well, I could talk about Hattie McDaniel all day. She was the very first African-American woman nominated for an Oscar and to win an Oscar for her portrayal as Mammy in Gone with the Wind, which is a controversial performance, because it's set in the antebellum South. Hattie McDaniel was not originally one of the actors that David O. Selznick, the producer of Gone with the Wind, put forward. So she went to his office, demanded that he put her name on the ballot, which was controversial at the time because Olivia de Havilland was seen as the favorite to win. Once Hattie entered that competition, all bets were off. So when Hattie entered into the ballroom, she didn't sit with her Gone with the Wind cast. She sat at a segregated table with her publicist. The studio wrote a speech for her. When they called her name, she was so surprised that the words that you see Hattie McDaniel say about her being a credit to her race came from her heart.
I know the studio didn't say that.
And there were many women nominated for Oscars in between, but it would take Whoopi Goldberg for Ghost as Best Supporting Actress to sort of divide that gulf. I mean, we have many, many wonderful women in between, from Juanita Moore from Imitation of Life, and Bea Richards, who was so amazing, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and Diana Ross, and Diane Carroll, and Marianne Jean-Baptiste, of course, the Londoner Secrets and Lies. And what's fascinating is, as you look at the evolution of Black women Oscar winners, you see sort of two dividing lines. Like, one, Black women still tend to play the matriarch, still the maternal role. So to see someone like Diana Ross break out and Lady Sings the Blues, or Diane Carroll to break out as the welfare mother, the sexy welfare mother, the complicated welfare mother, and Claudine. But then when you start to see sex, whether it's Dorothy Dandridge and Carmen Jones, that is another trajectory that still follows African American women like Halle Berry, who won the Oscar, first Black woman to win the Oscar for Monsters Ball. And so what we don't see are African American women playing just complicated everyday people. And we do see that with Viola Davis in Fences, which is sort of a groundbreaking role, and Clavanzane Wallace, who was the youngest woman ever nominated for an Oscar for Beasts of the Southern Wild. So all of these women are in this bookazine, this special collector's edition, along with acceptance speeches, along with some of the memorable quotes that they either said in Essence magazine or that we thought were memorable, like Hattie McDaniel saying, "I'd rather play a maid and make $700 a week or be a maid and make $7 a week."
Wow, that's a big difference.
Or Ethel Waters, who was nominated for Pinky. She was the second African-American actress. She had many fights on the set of Cabin in the Sky, some of them with her co-star Lena Horne, in which Ethel Waters always won those fights. And we have a quote in the bookazine where she says that, she's happy that she won that fight, But in Hollywood, when you win a fight, sometimes you don't work again. So it took her 6 years to return to the screen in Pinky, in which she got her Oscar nomination.
Very much.
I love that.
Yes.
Now, you have taken us, like Shannon said, down memory lane. But I need to know, present day, how was Angela Bassett chosen as your cover story? Because this is my auntie, just in case you didn't know. We're not related by blood, but I love her. How did you choose her?
Well, Angela Bassett, of course, was nominated for Best Actress for What's Love Got to Do with It, playing Tina Turner. So we did a process of elimination. There are many wonderful women in the book, like Lupita and Diana Ross, and we mocked up covers of all of them. And then that image just connected with everyone in the room who was making that decision. And also, when you look at Black women in Hollywood, Angela Bassett really is that quintessential, multifaceted, dynamic actress. She's always chosen well with her roles. I mean, she's always inspiring, always fearless, whether it's the work that she did with American Horror Story, the work that she's doing with 911. And there's something about her that is always forward-thinking, but there's also something about her that's very timeless, and that's what we were looking for. We were looking to be forward-thinking, but also timeless, and bam, Angela Bassett.
And clearly, you chose a person that doesn't age. Right. I mean, she's obviously a vampire. She looks the same as she did when she was 20. Is that what you meant by timeless?
Yeah, timeless, yes. Ageless beauty, you would say that, yes.
So. Now, at this year's Academy Awards, we all heard Frances McDormand's speech. In her acceptance speech, she called for...
Inclusion writer.
Yes, an inclusion writer. Do you think that this is just a moment, or is this a movement?
No,
changing?
I'm less cynical. I do believe with the hashtag Me Too movement and Time's Up and the inclusion writer, and I thought what was incredible about Frances McDormand calling out the industry is that she did that on a worldwide platform. The last time that anyone has really called out Hollywood in that particular way, we have to remember, is when Meryl Streep received the SAG Award for Doubt. And at that time, Viola Davis was not getting roles. And Meryl Streep from the stage said, "My God, can someone please give this woman work?" In which she, Fences opened up on Broadway, for her. And we could look at the trajectory of Fences, which would then get her the Academy Award. So people are listening, and if not for anything else, Frances McDormand is not going to shut up.
I know. We love her.
Thank you.
And speaking and being vocal for all the right reasons. Now, it's interesting that you mentioned Viola Davis and Meryl Streep, because we spoke about just, I believe, last week or a week and a half ago, where Viola went on record to say that people call her up and say she is the Black Meryl Streep, but they still don't offer her the roles. And if they do offer her the roles, they don't offer her the money that she's owed. What is your take on the climate in Hollywood right now with the advent of the hashtag Me Too movement?
Well, two interesting phenomenons have happened. Black Panther, right? So now we have, made strides internationally, globally, so no one can, we can't say that Black people don't sell tickets overseas. The other challenge is A Wrinkle in Time, which I think the studio set up just overinflated expectations to follow Black Panther, which really is a global phenomenon. A Wrinkle in Time is a beloved classic, but it's not a well-known classic in that regard. It's not Harry Potter. So I'm hoping that the studios don't look at the receipts of A Wrinkle in Time, which is doing quite well.
That's still number 1 and 2 on the box office charts.
It's doing better than Gringo, right? So, because he's the best thing. He's the best part of Gringo. But in Hollywood, they always look at the bottom line. They always look at the money. And Monique, who's fighting with Netflix, and I was like, Monique, this is a losing battle. If the Obamas are going to Netflix, no one's boycotting. No one's going to boycott Netflix at all. Monique, who's in the book, who won, of course, the Oscar for Precious, and in a nod, she wore gardenias in her hair, which is the same way that Hattie McDaniel dressed when she won her Oscar. But Monique made a very good point that the Tyler Perry films do very well at the box office, with very, very low budget. So if you look at the return on investment, African American films do quite strongly. They just don't do well overseas. But now that myth has been shattered. So now we can kind of see what's going to happen. Yeah. What I'm hoping doesn't happen is that every Black film that's released is not seen as, some litmus test, because it really still is about the quality of the film. I mean, and whether or not you like Citizen Kane or whether or not you like Twa with Kenya Moore, it really, and I love Kenya and I love Twa, but I love Citizen Kane. But it really does.
I love that he tried to backpedal from that shade. We don't need any umbrellas in this studio.
Well, I love clever. It really does depend on what audience you're trying to attract and the impact that you're having with that audience, not only the box office, but also there are opportunities like video streaming and, with all of these, other alternative cable networks that are happening. So I'm hearing about a lot of good films that are in the pipeline, especially for Black women.
Okay, so I want to hear your prediction then, because we know a lot of times for the Academy Awards, the movies that make the most are not necessarily the movies that win Best Picture or have the most nominations. So what are your prediction about Black Panther and how it relates to next year's Academy Awards?
So I think that what they're going to do with Black Panther is all of the visual technical awards, they will definitely be called out there. It just depends on how you're going to do the acting categories. I think Denai Grai is phenomenal in the film. So it also has to do with the politicking. There's a lot of politics to go on, and the winning an Academy Award. Ask Halle Berry. I mean, her staunch defender was Warren Beatty, who worked behind the scenes to make sure that she received that award.
Wow.
So it depends on the politicking that Marvel Studios and that Disney will do, and if there's not a film that competes with that in the fall, because it really is about where you're going to take your marketing dollars, because of course it's made the money now, right?
Yeah,
and
but
so
usually
then how
Marvel and superhero movies don't get any awards.
But Black Panther was also a very well-reviewed film. I mean, like it was not, we
didn't just buy tickets because they're Black characters.
The Rotten Tomatoes score was quite high. All of the reviews from the New York Times to the Amsterdam News were quite positive about it. So it really does depend on how much marketing weight that the studio will put in the fall. Because remember, Get Out was a blockbuster phenomenon.
100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And in the winter, and it won best original screenplay. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, and they kept that marketing campaign going.
Thanks, Patrick. And please make sure you pick up your copy of Essence Magazine's Black Women in Hollywood Collector's Edition, available now.